Hello, and welcome to the So You Want to Be a Marine Biologist podcast, where we learn about the ocean, share sea stories, and explore ocean careers. I'm your host, Kara Muzia. Let's dive into today's episode. Hello! Welcome to today's episode. I wanted to take a moment and say thank you to all of my listeners. I've been loving hearing from you guys. It's really been a lot of fun making this podcast. So thank you so much for listening and for reaching out and for all of your kind words. And I look forward to more. Today's episode is for anyone that wants to help the oceans, but may not want to go to university or study to become a marine biologist. While science is really important and is an important tool for understanding our natural world, there's more to conservation work than just studies. There are policies and politics, education, and of course, the human factor. Today's guest is Madi Stewart, a marine conservationist from Australia. To say Madi loves sharks would be an understatement. Madi met her first shark at age 6 and has been hooked since. She decided at a young age that she would be a marine biologist, but plans changed. Madi has starred in several shark documentaries, starting at age 19 with Shark Girl, a film about shark fishing on the Great Barrier Reef and the high levels of mercury in shark meat. In the 6 years since the filming of Shark Girl, Madi has continued to fight for sharks worldwide. In this episode, we chat about how people can make a difference, why marine biology wasn't the right course for her, and Shark Girl's favorite species of shark. The beginning of this recording did get cut off a bit, so we're diving right into Madi's childhood growing up on a boat literally on the Great Barrier Reef. Here's Madi.
Barrier Reef, so I really grew up in that area and on the water there. So my earliest memories as a kid were from the Great Barrier Reef, so it's obviously a really special place to me. And I guess that helped shape my connection with the ocean.
That makes perfect sense. So did you dive always, like from a young age? You were out snorkeling with your parents from the boat?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my dad tells me the first time that I saw a shark, I was like 6 years old.
That's incredible. Do you remember what kind of shark it was?
It was a little reef shark. It was off one of the islands in the Great Barrier Reef.
Oh, that's so cool. Did you mostly spend time offshore on the reef, or were you kind of like in and out of anchor or moorings and anchorage and docking?
We mostly spent time out on the reef.
You went to school for a little bit, correct?
I did, yes.
Okay, so what did that look like? Were you still living on the sailboat and then you kind of just went to school during the day and then back on the boat at night?
I love the way you said that. It feels like my grandma's talking to me. Like, can you at least go to university for a little bit? No, Nana. Actually, I lived on the boat for a good while, but then we actually moved off, and I ended up growing up with just my dad. We lived on the water on the Gold Coast in Australia. So we sold the yacht and we ended up with like a jet ski and a little boat living on the water so that I could go to school. So I went to school until about grade 9. And then my dad was like, you know what? I want you to see the world. I want to go scuba diving more. I'm going to pull you out of school. And instead of paying school fees, I'll pay for you to get an underwater housing for that camera that you really want. How does that sound? And me at the time, I think I was 14 years old. I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. So I left school, started homeschooling, and then from the age of 14 just got more heavily involved in being in the ocean and filming and going back to the Great Barrier Reef.
That's really amazing. I feel like not many parents would do that, and most 14-year-olds would absolutely jump at that opportunity. That's kudos to your dad. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's interesting because my dad's actually a university professor by profession. So he actually discouraged me from going to university, which is something I always wanted to do.
Why did he do that? That's really interesting.
My dad kind of lost faith in the schooling system. So he really just wanted to take me to go see things and do things and experience nature. And I think my dad really kind of ingrained a fear in me that things are actually dying and that we need to see them before they're gone. That was really important to him. And he actually, by the time he had finished his career in the education profession, I'm sorry, it's just started raining. I hope that's not too loud.
What is that?
It's raining. It should clear up in a second. I think by the time my dad finished with his career in university, he just kind of lost faith in the education system. He said that it was all about who could afford to go to university as opposed to who wanted to be there.
Okay. I mean, that's very astute of him to observe, I guess, and kind of he's his own renegade in his own right for pulling his 14-year-old daughter out of school and saying, let's go see the world instead. And you got
Yeah,
a hands-on education.
absolutely.
Did you immediately start photographing sharks? Was that like your first, pull towards photography, or was it other things in the ocean?
For me, it's always been sharks. I've always loved sharks. They've always been my favorite, and I wanted to be able to show people the things that I was seeing. So they were the things that I wanted to film the most. And when I started, it was all about just taking beautiful images and videos and making cool videos. None of it had anything to do with conservation when I first started.
So what was your main point then? Just to show off the beauty of what you're seeing?
Yeah, I just wanted to look cool. I wanted to make cool
Okay.
videos. I wanted to be like, yeah, I dive with sharks. Look at this cool edit. I want to put some sick music to this sick footage and make a cool movie.
All right. And then what
Yeah.
changed?
I was actually 14 years old when it happened. My dad and I went on a liveaboard expedition to the Great Barrier Reef. So you get on these dive boats and you stay on them for a week. And we were offshore on this reef that I had dived once before when I was 12. And I remember when I was 12, I got in the water on a night dive and there was like 40 grey reef sharks in the water. And everyone would jump in the water and go look at coral. And I would stay under the boat because the sharks would stay under the boat because they like the lights. And
Okay.
I would play with them. So I would breathe really fast in my scuba equipment, and my heart rate would accelerate, and the sharks would pick up on that. So they'd like run in to investigate, and it was just like this beautiful interaction with these crazy wild animals. They were like my little pets. So I was really, really excited because I hadn't been there in 2 years to go back to this reef when I was 14. So I had my camera this time. I didn't have it last time. So I was like, yes, I'm going to get the sickest footage ever, right? Got in the water, same time of year, exact same spot. There were no sharks.
Mm.
And I waited under the boat and I waited and I waited and I got up from the dive and I was like, what's happened? And then I was speaking to the crew and then the crew were like, yeah, things aren't what they used to be. I used to see this, this, and this, and now I don't see this. And it just hit me really suddenly that I'd always known bad things were happening to sharks around the world, but I never thought that they were happening in my backyard. Never thought they were happening in the Great Barrier Reef. And that led me to look into what was going on and discovering that there are illegal shark fisheries in the Great Barrier Reef and that sharks were being commercially harvested out of these areas. And whether or not that contributed to the lack of sharks on that night, I know that something did. And that was like a real game changer for me.
And that kind of just set you off on your shark path, on your shark girl
Yeah,
path.
absolutely.
That's really powerful. And I'm sure that was really shocking, especially for 2 years, for things to change that dramatically in 2 years is quite startling and really disturbing.
Absolutely. And the first thing that I got when I started conservation was people always saying to me, you're too young to know anything. You're too young to have seen a difference. But the fact that I was so young and had already seen that difference gave my cause more validity than any old person's, because we're starting to see such a dramatic change in a short amount of time that as young people, we actually have the most power and the biggest say.
It makes sense. You can literally shape the future and we can continue to do what we're doing or change things. And
Yeah, we're
so
starting
you
to see the
have.
consequences. I tried.
You filmed Shark Girl when you were 19 or 20?
19, yeah.
Okay. And Shark Girl we kind of learned about the Australian shark fishing, and that Woolworths, a major grocery chain in Australia, was selling shark meat, which is bad for numerous reasons. And kind of at the end of the film, you met up with Woolworths and you were trying to get them to stop selling shark meat from the Great Barrier Reef, mostly because, well, you don't want people didn't realize that they were shark fishing in the Great Barrier Reef at all. And then sharks also have a high content of mercury. So it's also a people problem.
Yes.
So what ended up happening with that?
So I ended up going and actually meeting with the head of Woolworths and talking to them about it and presenting my results to them. And, they were kind of shocked, but of course, nothing happened immediately. They're a big supermarket chain. They don't really care. And that was kind of my first introduction to the world and figuring out that change wasn't going to happen unless public pressure was part of it. And
Mm.
people won't just do the right things. And you have to actually question things as a consumer, especially. So it was a really interesting kind of path. And it led me to do a lot more investigating of shark meat. And the biggest thing with campaigns like this is I never have like a goal. Obviously, the goal was to get Woolworths to stop selling it. They eventually did. Whether or not that had anything to do with me, I don't know. But I can't find it on their shelves anymore. But the biggest goal for me, the biggest thing and the happiest thing for me was just making people aware of it. And now Australians everywhere are aware that shark meat is not only prevalent in our everyday lives, but is really bad for you and is being sourced from places like the Great Barrier Reef. So people knowing that and people being made aware of that was the biggest thing for me.
It's a really good point. Like educating people is probably the most powerful thing that we could do, including educating ourselves. So that's wonderful that you were able to have that opportunity to do it. How did Shark Girl kind of come about? I mean, I saw it here in the States.
Actually, a funny story. Yeah, so like as a kid that loved sharks, I hated the media. Everything in Australia is like shark attack and they're dangerous and they're scary and they're going to eat you. And I was like, oh, this is really frustrating because this is not what my babies are like. And this production company in Sydney reached out to me and they were like, hi, Madison, we've seen your work, blah, blah, blah. They were talking about little films that I had made and put on YouTube. And they were like, we want to make a documentary about you and what you do. And, you know, as like I was 18 at the time, you're getting an offer to be on TV and have an hour-long feature film made about you. Like, that's pretty cool, right?
It's
and
incredible.
Straight away I emailed them back. I was like, no, I'm good. I don't like the way that media represents sharks. And I was like, thank you, but I'm not going to be part of that. I'm like getting all righteous about it. And and then they were like, oh, okay. And they're like, how about we just come meet with you? So they flew from Sydney to where I live on the Gold Coast to come meet with me and talk to me about it. And then they were like, this is what we want to do. And I realized that their intentions were actually to help sharks. And they listed all the places that they were going to take me to film. And I was like, all right, it's starting to sound a little better. So I eventually agreed to it, but I was very cautious and nervous about it, but I agreed to it. And we started production of Shark Girl, and it actually took 2 years to make. And it was really incredible. It followed a journey of me doing real life stuff. And, you know, when it came to be released on TV, we got a lot of pushback because there's a lot of conservation in it and there's a lot of kind of topics that were controversial, like taking on Woolworths in Australia for a TV station to do that. And I'm not a scientist, so Smithsonian were very hesitant about doing anything with me because I didn't have that scientific background. So it was all a bit of a journey and a challenge, but eventually it became this amazing documentary.
And it truly is. And you're happy with how it turned out?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I do the things that are in it, and that's all that matters to me. And I think these days, a lot of people want to be in documentaries. And I think that the most authentic documentaries you can't plan. They happen when someone's passionate about something and that something is being destroyed and then they fight against it. And that's where the real magic comes from. So it was authentic, and for that reason I love it.
It is. It's really wonderful, actually. I had seen it a couple years ago and I rewatched it recently, and it's really good.
Thank you. I love rewatching it because I just think to myself, my God, I was a dorkiest kid. Like nobody said, hey, Maddie, you should like wear makeup every now and then if you're going to be on camera, or you know, stop wearing the exact same t-shirt every single day from the dive shop that you work at. Like, watching it now is like, oh my goodness, look at me. But whatever.
Yeah, but it just makes it that more real.
Yeah.
You have a really great quote from Shark Girl. The ocean without sharks is like blood with no heartbeat. I think that was like super powerful and really appropriate. Where did that stem from?
You know, there's no easy way to convince people of a shark's importance. And the sad thing is, sharks are truly underdogs. They are the heroes of the oceans. They have so much effect on the ecosystem, and people just see them as mindless killers, and they're actually going around eating all the fish, and they're these terrible animals, and we can get rid of them. But they're not, and they do so much work to make sure that we have a beautiful ocean, and we treat them like really bad. So trying to convince people that this animal that they're scared of is actually really important is a challenge. So trying to put it in perspective that people can understand, I think that's one of the hardest things that shark conservationists have to do.
Hey, Kara here. I hear it all the time. How do I become a marine biologist? Or my niece wants to help the ocean. Where does she even start? I hear from students, yes, and also nurses, HR professionals, and other mid-career folks who wonder if they could still make their dream of working with sea turtles or sharks come true, wondering if it's too late to answer the ocean's call. Here's what I've learned after 20 years in the field and hundreds of interviews. There's no straight line, no magic degree, and no gatekeeper. You create the path forward. If this sounds overwhelming and vague, I've created 2 tools to help you stop wondering what if and start moving forward with clarity and purpose. The first is my free guide, Be a Marine Biologist Without the Degree. Over 1,000 people have already downloaded this guide and taken their first step towards ocean impact. Inside, you'll find 7 concrete, doable actions to help you get started, whether you're just exploring or ready to make a change. Then there's the Ocean Blueprint. This is a 30-day self-paced course that helps you build your unique path into ocean science and conservation without quitting your job or going back to school. Inside the Ocean Blueprint, you'll get daily prompts to explore your interests, skills, and next steps, a structure that turns overwhelm into real momentum, and a bonus section to root your work into ocean connection. You don't have to wait for a degree, a perfect plan, or permission. Whether you're wading in or ready to take the deep dive, these tools are here to help you move from dreaming to doing. The ocean called. Are you ready to answer? Links in the show notes and on my website, karagracemuzia.com. I can't wait to see the waves you'll make. Absolutely. They kind of, they do regulate the food chain. A lot of them are apex predators, so they kind of help balance out reefs. And even if they're not apex predators, they do add value to the food web. And it's devastating to see when people are just like, oh, we must kill them all. So
Yes.
Nice to shed light on that. You also do shark meat testing, which again, I kind of touched on earlier, is more than just about sharks. It's kind of about human health because there's high levels of mercury in shark meat due to bioaccumulation which is like all the sharks eat all the little things and all the toxins in the tissues of the little animals or the little fish that they're eating kind of accumulate in the shark's tissues and then you have high levels. Where else have you tested? I saw you were in Florida. You went to Publix and they had black, which I was shocked to see they have black tip sharks.
Everyone was, yeah. And that another thing, just like Woolworths in Australia, that was the best thing, was people in Florida being like, what? Me being like, yeah, this is your backyard, and I think that's the biggest thing of people getting involved in conservation. You don't have to fly to Mexico with me and find some dodgy shark fishery in the middle of nowhere and film it. Like, you can find stuff to fight in your own backyard. There is a need for conservation literally everywhere in this modern world. So it was cool to raise that point again. And yeah, I took that. So I've now tested shark meat from Publix and Woolworths, and I've done 2 separate tests from Woolworths, and every single time there has been samples well over the legal and safe limit. Every single time, without fail. There's never been a time where I've done a mercury test and everything's been okay. So it's safe to say that sharks are not good for human consumption. Publix shark meat was the same. It was well over the safe level. And it's really, really scary to think that people are going and eating that, especially the biggest group at risk is pregnant mothers. You can actually lose your baby or give your baby serious defects by eating shark meat while you're pregnant, or even if you're about to become pregnant. So it's really scary that it's still allowed to be sold to people.
That is scary. In Australia, and is this still going on? There's shark culling?
So the shark cull was something that happened in Western Australia for a certain period of time. So that's not going on, but we still have in place a shark control program, or an SCP as they like to call it. So we still have baited hooks and nets that are permanently fixed off some of our beaches that are aimed at killing sharks.
Okay, so the cull is the more actively going out and fishing for the sharks, and then this program is less
essentially
active.
A permanent cull. It's a permanent cull. Yeah,
that's
it's one that's just it's been here for more than 30 years. It's been there's staff that operate it, that go and check these drum lines that these sharks get caught on.
Yes. So I watched your video that you did with Sea Shepherd and read your Obstruction is Justice article and thought that was really powerful and really kind of scary that that this is still happening. And have they still the impetus behind the cull was that people were getting attacked by mostly great whites, correct?
Yes.
And how many great whites have they caught since they've started the cull?
They didn't catch a single one. So they started this shark cull because of the great white attacks, and they caught several tiger sharks. And there hasn't been a reported attack from a tiger shark on a human being in that area in over 80 years. So the cull was totally ineffective, as we all knew that it would be. But at the same time, surfers were getting killed, so they had to do something.
This is still happening. Is there anything that can be done at this point? Like, it seems like I saw that there was an administration that came in 2017 and stopped it for a little while, but then it was reinstated in 2018. Like, what does it take to stop something like that?
Australia is one of the most backwards countries when it comes to our involvement in the natural world. We interact with animals every single day that can kill us, and we interact with sharks every single day, but we are so disconnected from them. I find the amount of respect that people in Florida, people in Hawaii have for animals like sharks, people, in Alaska that have for animals like bears, far surpasses anything that Australians will have for our dangerous animals. So the government really enforces this idea of just killing them and ignoring the issue as opposed to actually addressing the issue. So my personal way of contributing to this was writing an article, which is like a 13-page document called The Surfing Guide to Sharks. Right? There's actually a website where you can go and read all about it called surfingguidetosharks.com, and it's basically taking the responsibility into your own hands and knowing when it's safe and when it's not safe to go surfing, and really addressing that protecting humans in the water from sharks is an important thing. But we need to stop letting the government rely on just revenge tactics and killing sharks in order to do that. And there's really nothing that can be done, because when the shark cull started, 80% of the population in Western Australia didn't want it. They all voted against it, and it still went ahead.
That's fascinating. So why, if 80% said no, then how did it still go ahead?
It's not up to us. It was just the government needing to be seen to do something. I'm sure tourism had a factor. I know that tourism is a big part of the decisions of these kinds of things. So,
okay,
yeah.
That's a little disheartening. So I want to segue into protecting sharks. You've visited the Bahamas several times, and it's one of the few places in the world that sharks are 100% protected. And I saw in Shark Girl that Palau is another one that has recently become, sharks are protected. Are there any other?
Actually, the very first one. They were the very first country to do it, and they're this tiny little island in Micronesia, and they took that step, and it was the greatest thing they've ever done, because they make millions and millions of dollars off tourism around their sharks.
And that's just shark diving and kind of going out and seeing sharks. That's how they make all the money. That's incredible. So are there any other places that are shark sanctuaries?
Honduras, other areas in the Pacific. There are quite a few countries that jumped on board and was like, hey, we'll become shark sanctuaries as well. So essentially, it also, French Polynesia as well, like Tahiti, it also stops the trade of shark products. So that's a really, really important thing as well.
So as a sanctuary, there's no fishing, no culling, no sale of fins or meat or anything like that. It's just completely truly a sanctuary.
Yep. Yeah.
What about for the Great Barrier Reef? Is there a chance for that to happen?
The Great Barrier Reef is too far gone. Give up on it. It's so tragic for me to say that. There is nowhere in the world that abuses its natural wonders like Australia, the Great Barrier Reef. There are actually only 33% of the Great Barrier Reef is actually protected, and that area isn't even big enough to cover the home ranges of sharks there. There are over 120 commercial gillnet vessels with licenses to fish only sharks, and they operate in the marine park. So there's commercial shark fisheries occurring in the Great Barrier Reef.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's things that you would not think of. When I think of Great Barrier Reef, I just assume the whole thing is protected, which I understand It's enormous. But
and it's like, why wouldn't we protect it? It's one of the greatest things that Australia has to offer the world. But commercial industries and that greed and that demand has really, I don't know, there's a need to question things. Even I thought it was protected. And then that's when I started looking into that fishery, and I was like, wow, this is happening.
So you've taken your own action. In addition to Shark Girl, you have started other projects. So what other projects are you working on?
My goodness. So I made another documentary. I was in another documentary called Blue, which was really a lot of fun. And Blue took me to this place in Indonesia where fishermen were fishing lots of sharks. So recently I started a project called Project Hiu, where I actually go to this fishing village and I'm hiring fishermen and using their boats for tourism, which stops them from fishing sharks and gives them the chance to make even more money.
So Project Hiu is definitely something I wanted to touch on or talk about a lot about, actually, not just touch on. So how you walked in this village and there's a shark trade, shark industry. Like, how did you come up with the idea that I'm going to go back and we're going to turn this around?
I do random stuff like this all the time, and I think I'd love your listeners to pay very close attention to what I'm about to say. The most amazing things I have ever achieved in conservation have been totally winging it. And this is one of those things. I never thought that it would amount to what it is today. But I was taken to this fish market where they land these sharks and cut their fins off so many times by film crews. Like, we want to film you here. And eventually I was just like, what am I doing? We're not changing anything. I'm just being flown here to film it. So I was like, I'm going to apply for a grant and I'm going to get some money and I'm going to basically go back and try and talk to these fishermen and see if they'd be interested in tourism. You know, that's like a really crazy thing to do, going to a foreign country and just approaching some random that barely speaks English, that's never seen a tourist before, and asking if they'd be willing to let you use their boat.
Yes, that's absolutely huge. It's why I was blown away that you did that. It's very tenacious and wonderful that you almost had the audacity to do it, and it worked.
And then, you know, I had help. I had a team of people with me, and they all were part of it as well. My good friend Mark, who is Chinese, he helped a lot because Chinese people are renowned in that area for being tourists and having lots of money. So I'm sure that he was like a wonderful walking dollar sign for me to bring to the market. I'm sure that helped a lot. It was really amazing. And I think that we have this stigma around these people killing sharks, that they hate sharks and they hate the ocean and they're really evil people. You know what? At the end of the day, these are all men that ended up fishing sharks because they wanted to feed their families, and he wanted to buy his daughter the right amount of pencils because she loves to color and draw. So any opportunity to make better money, they were happy to take it. You know, fishing sharks was not their passion, it was their necessity. So the friendship that I formed with that one shark fisherman has now amounted to me being able to hire 4 boats and take tourists to this area.
That's awesome. So how much were these fishermen making before? When they were fishing sharks, how much were they making?
So the captain of the boat, on average, so they do a good day, they go out for 2 weeks, and in that 2 weeks, they can either do really good or really bad. On a really good day and a really bad day, it's very different how much they can make. So I did it by average. On an average fishing trip, which is 2 weeks at sea, the captain makes 150 Australian dollars, and that's now what I pay them a day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And how often are you able to do these trips?
Not often enough. So this is still a developing part of Project EU, is concentrating these trips around heavy shark fishing seasons and seeing what other kind of avenues for uses for their boats we have. So right now, it seems to be going really well, where I'll bring tourists for a week, and because I pay them so much, I tell them I'm going to be there, but I don't tell them when. So I keep the boats from fishing sharks for that whole month, and then they're getting enough money to sustain them for that time. So when I can run my trips, and all of this relies on people booking onto my trips, like I wouldn't be able to do it without them, then that's when I can take them out of the water. So still, when I'm gone, when I'm not around, when I can't take trips, they'll be fishing sharks again. That's something that I'm not planning to stop or avoid just yet because I can't bring them enough income. But we have certainly dented the trade. And more than anything, we're introducing a mentality to these men that this is an alternative occupation that they can potentially be involved in, and they're really enjoying it, seeing the benefits of tourism over fishing.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So nice to hear that conservation efforts can work, and you kind of have a guerrilla tactic to it, and I really like it.
Thank you. Yes, there's a lot of how I say, controversial stuff that I do. It's weird. I don't know if you've seen my project with Mark the Shark either. Like, this world infamous shark hunter that's killed hundreds of thousands of sharks, and just like everybody knows him, everybody hates him. And I went up to him one day when I was stuck in Miami because a film shoot got canceled, and I was like, hey, can I come on your boat and film? And told him exactly who I was, and we've been good friends ever since. And he's meant to be my number one enemy, but by being his friend, I've been able to be a part of his work and really document his stuff, and it's been really incredible. But yeah, just be nice to people. Just be honest, be nice, and be authentic, and have the right motivations, and that'll get you everywhere.
Yes. I think that's a really good lesson to learn, because I think a lot of people kind of get closed-minded and shut people down. And really, if you approach the world with an open mind, it's amazing what you can accomplish.
It's just like the conservation world is full of so much hate. And I
Mm-hmm.
would like to see that change.
You're right. Absolutely. They love something so much that they hate anything that could possibly damage it.
Which is why, like, when I was a kid, I would say in my films, don't fight because you hate the people destroying things. Fight because you love what they're destroying. And as long as you do it for that motivation, you'll never fail.
Where did the name Project Hue come from?
I just made it up really quickly because I needed a name. Hue is the Indonesian word for shark, so it's just Project Shark.
Okay, I kind of figured that had to have been it, but I had to ask.
Yeah.
You initially wrote a grant, and that's how you got funding for your Project Hue. How else are you funding what you do?
People coming on trips. So the only way that I can afford to go back, hire these boats, and keep helping the community is people signing up to my trips. And recently I got help making merchandise for the first time, so I've started selling these cool little bracelets, and that's making a big, big difference as well.
I actually purchased a bracelet. I'm really excited.
Oh, yay, thank you.
Of course. What other projects are you working on, or is Project Hue just kind of your end all be all right now?
No, I'm working on other stuff. I was following shark fishing tournaments around America, trying to film them and kind of raise awareness about that. I have more work I want to do with Mark the Shark. I want to track this shark fin industry in Indonesia all the way to the final stage and the customers in Hong Kong. And the other thing I'm doing, which is my main focus right now, is I'm actually making a film about animal agriculture contributing to shark attacks. So runoff from things like slaughterhouses and things where animals are getting bred in farms near the ocean, creating basically organic chum, which is leading sharks to come closer to shore.
That's a really fascinating concept, and I have not heard that before. Where
Yep.
are you primarily targeting?
So I'm focusing on 3 different examples.
Okay.
One in Sydney, so like 50% of the shark attack fatalities that have occurred in New South Wales all occurred while a certain abattoir was open in the Sydney harbour, and they occurred in that area. So I'm focusing on that story. That was in the past. That was like 1900s. And then I'm focusing on the Red Sea, and then I'm focusing on Western Australia. And all those places are places that have had evidence of animal agriculture contributing to an increased presence of sharks and then people getting attacked because of that.
How did you come up with that?
How did I come up with that? Actually, Humane Society International released a paper a while ago, and they suggested a link between shark attacks and live export ships, so ships that carry animals while still alive to other countries for slaughter. And I looked into that and I was like, wow. And then all these attacks were happening, and people talk to me a lot about shark attacks, and I try and help surfers as much as I can. So it became this thing where I was like, what if this is a contributing factor? And then I started to look into it, and I was like, my gosh, it is. So I'm really excited, and hopefully can do a bit more fundraising to be able to finish this film and make this link and show everybody that this could be a potential thing causing an increased presence of sharks.
That's amazing, and I'm really curious to see what your findings are. So how do you primarily fundraise for your film? I think there's a lot of people out there that are interested in conservation and want to be able to promote what they're doing, but may not have the funds to do it.
Yeah, so like a lot of people that don't have the funds to do it, they usually are really skilled at finding a way to do something to get funds, like a screening or a fundraiser. And if people do that, it's just so heartwarming. It's really amazing. I recently got a non-profit, so I don't have to use GoFundMe anymore, which is great. So I have a non-profit based in America, so we can take donations on board, and that all goes 100% back into helping sharks. So that's been my biggest avenue. Linking up with brands and people that want to help, that's great. All that stuff helps.
That's fantastic. And what's the name of your nonprofit?
The Hooper Collective.
The what collective?
The Hooper Collective. So
Hooper. Okay.
Hooper, after Matt Hooper, one of the characters from the movie Jaws. I know, I'm a little weird. So Matt Hooper was the scientist in Jaws. He was the one guy that didn't want them to kill the sharks. So I named my nonprofit the Hooper Collective because I want more people to be like Hooper.
That's great. That makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. That's so funny that you love Jaws.
Everybody's wigged out by it. Everybody's like, but it was so bad for sharks and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, but Jaws was a powerful film, and I want to make powerful films. So it's a great example.
It's a valid point. Absolutely. Do you have a favorite field story or stories to tell? Like your favorite day out with sharks?
There's a lot. There was one time where I was diving group in Byron Bay, and I saw my first great white. That was pretty cool. It just swam past me.
How many have you seen?
Great whites, like 5. Yeah, I'm very, very lucky to have seen them. Unfortunately, I spent my whole childhood with sharks, but now I'd only get to see dead ones, so I don't have that many good stories anymore. I'm working on it.
Yeah, you gotta get out in the water and try to see some live ones.
I know. I'm sorry. I just turned this into a depressing podcast, but I'm trying.
I think it's the other side of the coin. You don't get to go and do all the pretty things all the time. You have to kind of get dirty to make the difference, make the change. So
a lot of people see my Instagram and they're like, if this is saving sharks, I'd love to do this for a job. And I'm like, you don't get it. It's rarely that. I don't remember the last time I got to be in the water with sharks, actually. Somebody listening, take me diving with sharks.
Aren't you close to the ocean where you are?
I am, but not to sharks. Australia is kind of a difficult place to go see sharks, and it costs money. And right now, I'm spending all my money on trying to help them, which is great. I'm hoping it'll pay off one day. But yeah,
I have confidence that it will. So, what specifically are you looking for? The oceanic, like white tips, or I mean, that would be difficult. Like a reef shark.
I want to see tigers again. They're my favorite.
Ah.
And I want to see wild sharks. So, like when I was a kid, I had a lot of interactions with sharks that weren't planned. And I'd love to do that again. And now we go places and we chum for sharks, so we try and bait them in with food, whereas we used to just see them on our own, but that's becoming more rare. So
you just kind of answered one of my favorite questions to ask. One of my favorite questions to ask is, what is your favorite animal in the ocean? And I feel like I know this answer. So what is your favorite species of shark? And I think you just said it.
Tiger shark.
Why do you love them so much?
Because they're really dopey.
They're dopey? How are they dopey?
They're really funny. I really like them. They have personalities, and I think that that's the most important thing about sharks.
Yes. So give me an example. Why are they so dopey or have such personalities?
I've seen them like hit their heads on rocks. I've seen them try and ambush things, and then you make eye contact with them, and they're like, "Oh, damn it!" and then they go back and try again. They're just funny. They're funny to watch. They're also beautiful. They're powerful. They're tiger sharks. I think more than any other shark, when it looks you in the eye, you can tell that there's something there. And I think it's just the eye contact with tiger sharks that for me is different to every other species.
A couple more questions, or maybe one final question. Do you have any advice for people that want to help save the oceans or specifically help save sharks, or any advice that they should ignore?
Yes, ignore the advice. Ignore people saying that you need a degree, you need to do this, you need to do that. Basically, the only thing you need to do is be passionate about it and do it for the right reasons. It's great to go get a degree if you want to do that, but you don't need to be a marine biologist to make a difference. It depends on what your skills are. For me, it was filmmaking. But if I wanted to contribute to science, then I would need a marine biology degree. So it just depends on what your skills are, what you're passionate about, and following that. And I think the biggest piece of advice I can give is that social media is definitely changing conservation, and I think it's giving like a false impression of what conservation should be. So try and steer away from that and just do things for the right reasons. Your motivation for doing things is going to be the most important part of what you do. And a few years ago, if someone said one person can make a difference, I would have laughed at them and thought, no, we can't. But we really can. And whether or not you make a huge difference, it doesn't matter. You'll start to see the effect that you make when you just start trying.
That's really good advice. I kind of want to dive a little bit further into what you mentioned about social media and conservation, that it's not what it really is. Could you kind of elaborate on that?
the thing is, when my Instagram's going really good, I'm not really doing much for conservation. And when I'm
Mm.
doing lots for conservation, my Instagram's not going really good. One of the most effective things I have ever done in my conservation career has been picking apart the fisheries on the Great Barrier Reef, learning as much about them as I could so I could develop strong arguments against them. There's not a
Mm.
single photograph that could look cool doing that on Instagram. So I think
No.
that people need to keep in mind that it's very different, and you need to question things. You need to look at someone and be like, are you actually making a difference, or are you just posting pretty pictures? And I'm really, really lucky to have had a partner who takes amazing photos, but if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have any following. So it's and he says to me all the time, he says, you're the only popular conservationist posting graphic images of dead sharks. Like, nobody else is kind of doing it or focusing on it. Honestly, it's all about starting somewhere, and I've been doing this since I was 14. I ended up washing the dishes of a filmmaker in my hometown, so he would teach me about cameras. There's a lot to do and a long way to go and a lot to learn and a lot of sacrifices to make before you can get to the level that I'm at now, where I can ask the public for donations and I can do these things. So I'm super lucky to be here, but it definitely takes a lot.
Excellent advice and really great points. Is there any other things you want to ask of the audience or tell the audience before we kind of sign off?
I want to tell the audience that the way that things are going on the planet is really quite drastic. We're seeing a huge shift in mindsets of people, but we're also losing our environment, and it's really scary. And I think that we need to take it super serious, and we need to do as much as we can, legal or not. And I think that the most important occupation that we can have is protecting our natural world. That's the most important thing that we can do. So, yeah, I guess that's my only advice, is look at the severity of it.
It's great advice. Well, thank you so much for what you do, Madi. This is awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, listeners, I hope you found today's episode enlightening. Now I have a challenge for you. Madi has a unique perspective on the conservation world, and she's making bold moves and changing lives as a result. What's one thing you could be a little more bold with in your own life? It doesn't have to take flying across the world and filming a documentary. Does your local grocer sell shark meat? If so, consider writing to them, voicing your concerns about the health of our oceans and human health, and ask if they'll stop selling it. Most companies take their customers' comments very seriously. If you'd like to support Madi's amazing work, there's a link in the show notes for her Project Hue website. You can make a donation or purchase your own sweet shark fin bracelet, or simply share her work. Every bit helps. Thank you so much for listening, y'all. Until next time. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment under the show notes at marinebio.life or send me an email at hello@marinebio.life. We'll catch you next time on So You Want to Be a Marine Biologist.